amazed at how many people are down here. They're trying to pick up the new holes, and then they're not wanting to rematch. Come on, dude. Come on. There you go. All right. Finally got somebody that wants to rematch. Grunberg Slopes, hole 8, par 4. Awesome. First time I've ever been on this hole. First time. We'll see what kind of distances we can get with the Marlin and where our red lines are and what kind of wind we have. Typically in the practice, they'll give us non-favorable wind on these drives. So, all right. Oh my. I'm going to go for that. And that's with a Marlin. So you could definitely drive the green if we had favorable wind and you brought out a big power ball. Absolutely. We have a chance to drive the green here or get way down in there into our wedge range if we bring out a big ball, even with a headwind like that. This hole right here is definitely going to be one that we're going to want to focus on leading up to the tournament. So for the next few days, every time you get on this hole, this is going to be a hole you're going to want to really kind of see what's possible down in there. Now, the bad news is that you're with a bigger ball, your red line's going to be in this area, so you should be able to bridge the gap. It's controlling the ball on the other side so that it doesn't end up in the sand over here or the sand here and trying to weave yourself through this little gap. It's definitely going to be worth the risk because you can make it on from down there, but if you catch it right and you end up in that fairway, now I'm really happy my opponent went to the other side. There's no downside here of being down low. You still can get on. Looking at where there's my max club. See if we can get up high enough. There's max. There's mid. So I'm in about mid club. So I'm going to treat that at about 8 per ring. So 5, there's 6, treat that at about 5/8. Made it great to the left. Oh, we're going to love this hole. This hole is going to be, we have a serious chance here. Now, if you've got a lower developed extra mile, you're definitely going to have to bring out a bigger power ball. But it'll also depend on which way the wind's blowing on how big of a ball you have to bring out. So if the wind's blowing with us and we have a tailwind, you may only have to bring out a 4 power ball. If we're getting non-favorable like a side wind, you may have to bring out a 5 power ball to bridge that. But there is definitely a chance here of driving the green. One of the things you got to understand about the game is everybody's going to have different level clubs. And with the club card trading that's out there, I know, if you follow a lot of stuff in the community, people irritated about different people's club levels. That whole conversation needs to stop, because with the way Playdemic did with the club card trading, you're going to run into people that have better clubs now, especially people that have been playing for a long time. I was talking to my nephew about it. He plays Planet Side, Call of Duty. And in those games, worldwide ranking, he's in the top 1% of the players that play in those games. He's definitely a premium player. But when you drop into those battlefields, you may be going against somebody that just loaded the game up and is on the field for the very first time, or somebody that's in the same ranking as him. So people are always upset, like, you're just, and he, all right, let's talk about what we just learned on that. So this is awesome. Usually when we have these kind of fingers in like this, our best shot is, our red line's going to be somewhere in this area, and we're feeding off into one of these fingers, and then this is our shot. But it looks like, from what I saw there with the Marlin ball, my red line was here, my max red line. If I bring out a 3-power ball, bring out a Titan, I'm going to push that red line forward. And the question is bridging this gap. Now, even if you can just bleed off and be right here, this is going to be that, whether it's depending on the size of ball you bring, whether this is a minimum short iron or a maximum wedge. But this shot down here, we have a shot of driving this green. So depending on where you can get your bounces. So if your red line's up in here, if you've got that second bounce, I'm not sure, if we bring a bigger ball, whether we'd have to put on overpower. But when we're talking about holes, like when I look at the holes in the tournament to pick up, usually on par threes, I like the par threes that are in this. Sorry about that. Let me switch back. I was editing that video, or taking that video out. Let's get back on that hole. So usually when I am coming to these holes for the very first time and I'm looking at the stuff like par threes, I usually like to play pretty conservative on par threes, because you can't afford to ever get a par on a par three. And a lot of times these, the shots that we have to take on these par threes are bouncing over sand, and it's easy to make a bad wind adjustment. And so you can end up easily getting a par on a par three. So I tend to play par threes a little more conservative, where I go right at the cup. But the par threes that I've seen so far in this tournament are more where you can run it up to them, and you're going to have really good opportunities for hole-in-ones. So I'm going to play those. I like to play on the green side where I'm not bouncing over stuff, and these par threes lend themselves to that. So I like the par threes in this. You're going to have chances for hole-in-ones. So normally I look at the par fours are the holes that you really want to, that I really focus on. Like, those are holes that we can pick stuff up. And then on the par fives, it's like, is there an opportunity to get myself into short iron range on a par five so that I can really get a real strong look at Albie? But this par four right here, if we have an opportunity where we can get into our wedge or drive the green, we definitely want to work on this hole as the week goes on. Because from where my red line was here, and what, trying to just bleed out from here with a Marlin ball, if I'd have popped out a Titan, I could have easily gotten out into this area and possibly even farther up. But I think that we have an opportunity on this hole to drive the green. So I was using an extra mile 9. If you've got a 7 or an 8, even a 6, I still think that you could get over into this area. You may have to bring out a bigger ball. This might be, based on bounces, this might be a hole if you brought out a bigger ball so that you could push the red line forward. Because let's say this is where, let's say I was using a power 4 or power 5 ball, and my red line with my extra mile is here. So it's hitting at what, 235, 236, somewhere in that neighborhood. And you bring out a big topper, your big topper is going to be hitting, here, because you're losing that raw distance. But if your bounces are right with your topspin, because you have all that topspin on, you might be able to bleed out here, even if you've got a big topper. So if you've got a lower developed extra mile, it still might be possible with one of the other clubs. But this hole does look like it's going to be an extra mile hole, or an Apocalypse, or one of those longer hitting raw power clubs where your red line's farther forward so that you can get the bounces right to bleed up in there. But even if you can just get down into this area, this is going to be an awesome opportunity for us to pick one up. But if we can catch it right and bleed up through there, the problem is going to be, if we look at our lines here, we draw the line from the tee box to the green, and then we draw the line, we're hitting out into this area right here, and we draw that line out. When we get to the other side, we're going to have some kind of movement on the ball to weave us through this very narrow gap here between these two sand traps. So it's very likely that you could end up getting this shot down in here, but ending up in these sand traps and getting caught up. Now, if you find yourself consistently during the practice session here ending up in these sand traps because you're not getting the right movement to weave it through here, and you're constantly in this area, I think I would rather work a little bit harder to end up here and be a little shorter, but be in the fairway so that I could take that with my short iron or my wedge and try and stick it back in this area a little bit. So take a little bit off of it. But we'll have to work on this as the week goes on. I'm 100% positive there's going to be people hitting this that are going to end up either on the green or right off the green, taking a short chip for that eagle versus having to hit up from one of these islands. So no matter what this week, I'm definitely going to be going for this area right here. Because even if you do end up in the rough or the sand, you can easily get on and you still got a shot. But, obviously you want to be in the fairway. But I think my chances from down here in this sand or even in this rough are probably as good as if I'm back here. It's just a matter of hitting perfect. But if I can get down here in the fairway, anywhere down here in the fairway, or get up there on the green, definitely worth focusing on this hole as the week goes on. All right, that was hole number 8 of the Grunberg slopes. Thanks for watching.